Ahoy, hoy. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we are going to be... This one's going to be a fun one. This one's going to be fun. Fun is potentially... You know what? I'm immediately retracting that. Today, we have some good stories and some bad stories. We have some... There's some sads in the world. There's some what the actual fucks in the world. And there's some funnies in the world. We're gonna... It's a decent-sized mix. It's gonna be a fun one. At least just going through it will be wildly fascinating. Now, the first one, this is an article by Kate Conger and Tiffany Sue. However, the important bit is a video from after Elon Musk endorsed a conspiracy theory. Oh, no. I have to find that's a video of something else, apparently. It is absolutely worth seeing this clip, though. I will pull it up. It is insane. Advertisers say they do not plan to return to X after Musk's comments. And if you don't know what Musk's comments were, we're gonna fucking get into that. This is... I am legitimately amazed that anyone has ever referred to this person as a genius, given the level of sheer stupidity he seems to have fallen to. And just angry pettiness. Elon Musk, the owner of X, criticized the advertisers with expletives on Wednesday at New York Times Deal Book Summit. Advertisers said on Thursday that they do not plan to reopen their wallets anytime soon with X, the social media company formerly known as Twitter, after its owner, Elon Musk, insulted brands using an expletive and told them not to spend on his platform. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to open fucking Sky News. It's worth just watching.
There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope...
don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
They are a company that sells ads. That's all Twitter sells. Twitter has a bunch of ideas, a bunch of, concepts, a bunch of things. The money from Twitter comes from people advertising on Twitter. And their boss is telling people, if you're offended by the Nazi shit, don't buy ads.
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go yourself.
But...
Go yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
Jesus fucking Christ. Imagine saying that with a straight face to a room full of what are essentially your customers. It almost boggles the mind. Don't advertise, go fuck yourself. We will not make adjustments for you. The Nazi shit stays, go fuck yourself. Advertisers said on Thursday they did not plan to reopen their wallets anytime soon with X, the social media company formerly known as Twitter, after its owner insulted brands using an expletive and told them not to spend on the platform. At least half a dozen marketing agencies said the brands they represented were standing firm against advertising on X, while others said they advised advertisers to stop posting anything on the platform. Some temporary spending pauses that advertisers have enacted in recent weeks against X are likely to turn into permanent freezes, they added, Mr. Musk's comments giving them no incentive to return. Advertisers are not coming back to X, says Lou Pascal, the founder and chief executive of the AJL Advisory, a marketing consultancy. Okay, AJL Advisory, they're the people who tell the big three in Detroit how to handle their digital marketing. So that's Ford, that's GM, that's Dodge, that fucked off. They handle, oh God, it's been a while since I've looked at they're one of the majors. They are one of the biggest, they handle gigantic fucking corporate accounts. And when you have people that fucking high up in these companies saying, yeah, no, this platform's dead. The platform's fucking dead. Unfortunately, However much I would love to sit here and be like, this is just a fun story, and dear God, can Elon Musk eat it? Twitter was legitimately a useful tool, and watching it die like this it's kind of, I don't know. I also have complicated feels because they have actively broken multiple parts of that website. I am sorry that today was the only day that I didn't have a Friday Fucks or Sucks early in the morning. I checked that early last night. I was paranoid about that after the 26-hour stream. It was the one thing I wanted to keep going, and they fucking broke that. So like, I think that's done. I think that's going to be moving over to Blue Sky because I need it to actually work. Funny story. Knowing that I put in a bunch of effort to make sure that it worked. I lined it up earlier in the week and then like hours before checked to make sure it was set up in the drafts, and it still didn't fucking do the thing. Just actually infuriating. In recent weeks, more than 200 advertisers have halted their spending on X after Mr. Musk endorsed an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, and researchers called attention to instances of ads appearing alongside pro-Nazi posts on the platform. The company, which has made most of its revenue from advertising, is at risk of losing up to $75 million this quarter as brands back away. Again, the thing Twitter sells is advertisements on Twitter. That is their product. That is the only product. Technically, they have some people paying $8 a month. A lot of that money went straight the fuck out. A bunch of those people got paid, and some of them were getting paid like in the thousands, which by definition means some of those people were getting paid the majority of the $8 that some were turning in. Like, you had a handful of accounts that were getting multiple thousands of dollars a month type payment. That money didn't come from nowhere. It's not like it. When Elon Musk bought the company, he didn't just like inject it full of cash. The cash was coming from advertiser revenue, which he has lit on fire over and over again. From jumping into bed with like hateful Nazi bullshit to like openly like fucking. We went over this last week. He's suing the Anti-Defamation League because they pointed out that the fucking ads are showing up next to Nazi content. The situation was compounded on Wednesday when Mr. Musk made incendiary comments against advertisers at the DealBook Summit in New York. In a wide-ranging interview at the event, Mr. Musk apologized for the anti-Semitic post, calling it one of the most foolish he had ever published, but also said that advertisers were trying to blackmail him. He singled out Bob Iger, Disney's chief executive, who also attended the DealBook Summit. Yeah, the go fuck yourself, hi Bob, was specifically telling Bob Iger, the head of Disney, to go fuck himself publicly. You run an advertising company, Mr. Musk. It is a very fancy, weirdly technical advertising company. That's all Twitter is. If you boil Twitter down to its most core component, the thing that they are claiming they can make money off of, they have everybody interacting and then they sell those people ads. That's what they do. You are the ad space that they sell to their customers. And like, that's fine in some ways, I guess, shoulder shrug, but like, he just told all of his customers to go fuck themselves. And it's worth pointing out, Musk may have bought Twitter, but Musk is not the one who bought most of it. Banks put in a lot of that money, and they're gonna have expectations of return. Twitter, I guarantee you, is going to go into insolvency at some point because the banks are going to want to get... Insolvency is probably not the way they're going to do that. I'm not entirely sure what legal framework they're going to use, but the fact that they have so much money tied in, and realistically, they're never getting like a third of it back. Insolvency would be... I don't think insolvency would work entirely because they would lose, like, you wouldn't be able to get most of the money even doing that. There's way too many like split apart assets in weird parts of the world. realistically, they'd probably try to claim some kind of one of the bankruptcies that's not the bankruptcies, that's like the restructuring where you maintain the brand kind of thing. That is where I'm seeing Twitter going. And I think Linda Yaccarino, everybody is looking at her like she's the ridiculous. Yeah, they're going to get into her in a second. But everybody's looking at Linda Yaccarino and seeing like the ultimate sycophant. I think she is the ultimate sycophant. I think she was given very specific instructions to not piss off Musk, but maintain control once we get rid of him. I straight up think Yaccarino is there so that as Musk is removed, there is some semblance of stability and transition, and they can turn the assets that they own into something useful. That's the reason Yaccarino got hired. And that's also the reason she's doing all of this, knowing full well Musk is not going to pay her most of that fucking money. The only way that move makes sense is when you remember that she's not getting paid from him. Or if you intuit that she's not getting paid from him. That the move makes sense when she is like there to steady the ship while they figure out how to shake him off of it. Hours later, Linda Yaccarino, X's chief executive, tried to mitigate the damage. In a post on X, she shifted attention to Mr. Musk's apology for associating himself with anti-Semitism and appealed to advertisers to return. X is enabling an information independence that is uncomfortable for some, Mrs. Yaccarino wrote. X is standing in at a unique and amazing intersection of free speech and Main Street, and the X community is powerful and here to welcome you. Don't get me wrong. Linda Yaccarino has a fucking silver tongue. Like, Linda Yaccarino could realistically convince you to invest in an Antarctic ice factory. Like, she is full on swimming in the corporate bullshit speak. And the weird form of yes-anding that comes from having to constantly approve of a simple set of bullshit from the people directly above you that you're not allowed to, like, you have to always step around. You're never allowed to move it. You're never allowed to clean it. A representative for X did not respond to a request for comment. Ruben Schruers, the chief strategy officer at Equibity, a marketing and media consulting firm, said Ms. Yaccarino appeared to be trying to get brands to stand with X's views on free speech. But advertisers were unlikely to step in to sponsor the social media platform's goals, he said. It doesn't resonate at all, he said, adding that the spending pauses seem to be turning into a termination of advertising on X. Short of a leadership change or a change in control at the company, he added, advertisers were unlikely to consider returning to the platform. And again, this is all Twitter is. There is no universe where Twitter turns into a paid service. If Musk thinks that's what's going to happen, why? You're going to kill nobody's going to be able to make a new account. And the second you can't make a new account, you're going to essentially kill the entire platform. And the second you can't make a new account, you can't interact with it, you can't bring your friends along. You can't make it like a thing that you expand. Not to mention, most people are not going to fucking pay for it. Like, in order to get people to pay for it, they had to make the payment something you never realized. They had to sell ads to you because no one on the fucking planet was going to put in their credit card information for that. You're absolutely right, Olive. The idea of, like, the fact that Twitter functions on a basic level right now is actually astounding. The number of things that should have broken a long fucking time ago. I'm a little bit amazed that it's as glued together as it is. But you also have to admit that, like, even though it is glued together, there are gigantic pieces that, like, I think it would almost be hard to break because of how much time they have spent having not just somebody tweaking it, but somebody eventually writing a script that automates whatever the tweak they're doing is. And don't get me wrong, that's always the kind of thing that, like, eventually will break itself. But it also provides, especially once it's something that's been built for, like, a decade, the amount of stability and self-writing and kind of automated return of stuff, I think they bought a very advanced ship. I think over the next 6 months to like 2 years, we're going to really start seeing some of the wheels fall off. And at some point, some of their control systems are actually going to get beyond their control at all. Because some of the way the Twitter algorithm functions is straight up not just strange, but almost counterintuitive. It doesn't resonate at all. Yeah. Other marketers are recommending that brands abandon X altogether. Tom Hespos, a longtime media planning executive who runs a consulting firm, Abydos Media, and works with clients in healthcare and other industries with up to $50 million media budgets, said that he gave his first formal recommendation to a chief client on Thursday that they not only stop spending on X, but back away from posting there. You can't, with a good conscience, make a recommendation to a client that he continue to be a part of what Mr. Musk has done on X, Mr. Hespos said. Mr. Musk's rejection of advertisers highlights the challenges facing Miss Yaccarino, an advertising industry veteran, as she tries to stabilize X's revenue. The last 3 months of the year have historically been lucrative for X, as major advertisers typically launch campaigns for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and holiday shopping. Except, again, nobody is doing that on X for fear that their shit will show up next to some Nazi bullshit. And rightly so, because if you pay for something to be on X, there's a good chance it's going to show up next to some Nazi bullshit. Yeah, I don't think Miss Yaccarino is being dumb. And I don't think she is... I don't even think she's signing off on anything she's saying. There's a reason she's very carefully coaching, like, all of her language in hyper corporate speak. Her friends are the banks, and I think they're going to reveal either after the bankruptcy or in the middle of it that this was the plan the whole along. Very delusional. Oh God, hearing about what happened and the number of people who have been fired from Twitter, and like the way that they have like driven entire teams out, I think Twitter, one, it doesn't help that Elon Musk, there are people who are like obsessive with him and will just automatically agree with his bullshit. So you have people who were ready to sign on with him or are eager to like become his next compatriots. All right. This next bit, I don't exactly like the source in terms of the website, but the article seems somewhat decent. And more importantly, every other article I've seen around this is like filled with terrible takes, and I didn't want to have to deal with screaming at it half the time because this is actually scary. This is an article. Yes, this one appeared on the NRA. It was written... I hate the way they do their article names. The author is not listed. We're just going to call it sourced by the NRA. Joe Biden has long insisted he would ban what he calls, quote, assault weapons. And he enlisted a motley succession of extreme anti-gun legislators to aid in that effect. Now, Senators Angus King and Martin Heinrich have joined that dubious collective by introducing perhaps the most sweeping anti-gun prohibition bill of the 21st century. Both had voted against prior versions of federal assault weapons bans, making their debut effort into the genre notable not only for its scope, but as a pragmatic in-office flip-flop. But at the end of the day, their bill is just like its predecessor in targeting law-abiding gun owners while leaving armed criminals unperturbed. Most assault weapons bills to be introduced in Congress follow a similar formula. First, they ban various types of firearms by name, usually adding their duplicates or copies, whatever that might mean. Then they generally prohibit all semi-automatic long guns with certain supposed military-style features. Finally, they ban detachable magazines based on their capacity, typically drawing the line at 10 rounds. This bill, however, targets semi-automatic firearms of all kinds and configurations, presumably banning them as a class and then exempting some. The usual magazine ban is also included, capping legal capacity of most types of ammunition feeding devices at 10 rounds. The legislation goes even further. If passed, the bill would order the ATF to publish a list of whatever semi-automatic firearms remain legal for sale and possession by the general public. This is likely due to the vague definitions and exemptions within the bill. So they are flat out aiming to ban not just firearms, or not just the usual, like, oh, anything that's like specifically an AR or specifically an AK. The wording on the bill is gas operated semi-automatic. The thing that's interesting. So the legislation goes even further. All right. As an example, the exemption of the bill for semi-automatic handguns is so poorly written that it wouldn't apply to many popular self-defense handguns, and depending on its interpretation, may not apply to any handguns, meaning the bill could ban all semi-automatic handguns. Which, yeah. I want to see if someone has a link to the bill. Here is the Go Safe Act. Regulates firearms based on their inherently dangerous and unusual lethality of the internal mechanism. Oh, fuck. This is why I get angry when I read this stuff written by people who don't understand how firearms work. Every gun is designed to be lethal, and the idea of, like, extra lethality is just straight up, like, all you're doing is forcing people to come up with a workaround for this stuff. It's not... Okay, when they say... And the worst part is, recoil-operated handguns... There are a lot of semi-automatic handguns that don't count as recoil-operated. It depends on how you define a lot of systems. And because of that, yeah, it does not protect constitutional rights. Fuck off. It limits high-capacity ammunition devices. The Go Safe Act limits a firearm's ability to... Fuck off. The bill would limit the number of rounds that large-capacity ammunition feeding devices are permitted to carry to 10 rounds of ammunition or fewer. So that means that a rifle or a shotgun with a permanently fixed magazine of 10 is fine. And in order for a handgun to do that, it needs to be 15. Or it needs to be 10. It's a nationwide ban on all magazines over 10 rounds. Additionally, the Go Safe Act makes conversion devices, including bump stocks and Glock switches, unlawful. This is how you know it's political theater. Because the fact that it says Glock switch, that, like, this is the thing that makes Glock switches illegal. Those are already illegal. They're machine guns. They are legally machine guns. Just the switch on its own is legally considered a machine gun. It is dubious to have the fucking download the fucking STLs for the switches. The main argument you can make is the printed ones don't work that well. They need to be made out of, like, at least some of the parts need to be made out of metal because of the amount of force that they'll take. That barely holds water, too, because you can hold the trigger down and get multiple rounds out with one. Prevent stockpiling of firearms and large-capacity magazines and ensure no one loses the value of any firearms they currently have by establishing a voluntary system, which would allow firearm... Calling it voluntary is such bullshit. It only counts as voluntary if I can say no. Like, that is the definition of political theater. If they are pushing for a buyback program and they call it a voluntary buyback program, fuck you. If the option is I volunteer to buy it back or you send the ATF, that's not volunteering. Forcing would-be mass shooters to reload their guns more frequently. That's not what would fucking happen. First of all, we live in an era where mass shooters are just going to print their own magazines. I have 3D printed AR magazines. I have 3D printed 30-round mags. You know what? Give me a half second. Y'all, the lighting is not being nice with this, but this is a 30-round 3D printed magazine. Do you know what the main reason why you're not going to get fucking mass shooters preventing? Because they don't follow the fucking law in the first place. Like, you're not going to get mass shooters to magically gun bans do not save lives because the people who are going to be doing that shit are not there to follow the law. And we live in an era where I can just make this. I can literally just print a magazine and bam. How are you, like, what are you even supposed to do with this? We live in an era where you can just print guns. Like the entire thing. Short the barrel, which you can make at home using printed tools. Anybody trying to push gun bans at this point is not understanding the current state of technology. Gun control is dead. We killed it. All of the stuff that they keep pushing is just not understanding where the technology is and trying to push people backwards. There is no future where you make guns less accessible to people who want them. You can make them a little bit more dangerous to the people who want them. You can make it something that they have to make on their own. But, like, there is a truth when it comes to the regulation of abortion. That when you look at the data, you don't actually ban abortion because the rates don't go down that much. What you ban is safe access. What you ban is people being able to make their own medical choices, and they suddenly have to do some sketchy things. But they will do those sketchy things because it is problems that affect their fucking lives. And the idea that we should have women in fucking back alleys with a untrained doctor and a clothes hanger. Dear fucking God, no. I want guns to be easily accessible, to be completely honest with you. I think the answers do not come from disarming people. I think the answers are also going to have to come from we need to have a giant fucking conversation as a country about how we handle things like mental health and how we handle things like health in general. I think a lot of the people who get easily radicalized and turned to the worst forms of crime are viewing being directly told there is no option, you can just go die. And they're realizing that the society's kind of abandoned them, and their response is horrifying, but also what non-horrifying response would you expect from that? I feel like we do need to, like, if we banned guns, the problem ends up being you haven't actually solved the problem. You've solved this what seems like a symptom. And don't get me wrong, we have a problem in our society where we glorify violence and we think of guns in a very specific way. We kind of have a tendency to focus on we have a tendency to focus on how cool they can be. And I do think we need to talk as a culture more about separating guns from cool. That is a thing we need to work on. I unfortunately don't think that's going to work by banning guns. If anything, there is part of me that wonders, is there not part of the firearms lobby that is actively paying for this shit? Half a second. Sorry. I have it set so if my roommate's been having some personal issues, so I'm just making sure I can help him. Anyway, where was I? Gun manufacturers need customers, and they need customers that are incentivized to buy. And there's part of me that is wondering if there isn't some part of this that isn't phrased the same way that tobacco companies have discovered the utility of anti-smoking advertising. You may have noticed that anti-smoking and anti-vaping ads that are paid by the tobacco lobby, the ones that get spread widely, are not particularly effective. In fact, they actually tend to be really good at getting people just to remember they want to smoke. Same thing has also been happening with a lot of the anti-vaping advertising that they were forced to pay for, which, shaw gasp, they did the same thing again. Why are we surprised? And I wonder how much of the nonsense gun legislation that this is clearly political theater. However much I'm angry at this concept and the fact that they're absolutely going to have to be a lot of people that have conversations around why this is so dumb. I can't help but ask, this is never going to happen. So a genius-brained fucking lobbyist would pay for this to go because it's never going to get passed. But every single person who is worried about it is going to go buy some guns or the mags that might get banned. Because if you buy it before the ban, well, it'll get grandfathered in. And if not, there's a chance that having it before and enough people having it before will just invalidate it. Because the law is weird like that. Because there's definitions in the Second Amendment interpretation that is common use. Any weapons that are in common use are to be considered protected. All right, I want to look at the actual bill text. Definitions. A semi-automatic firearm means any firearm that upon initiating the firing sequence fires the first chambered cartridge and uses a portion of the energy to fire the cartridge. To extract the expended cartridge, chamber the next round, and prepare the next mechanism to fire again. It requires a separate pull, release, push, or initiation of trigger to each cartridge and is not a machine gun. You kind of know this isn't theater, or that this is theater, because they don't mention... This is defined in another act that they're not mentioning. The term cycle the action with respect to a firearm means to extract the fired case, blah, 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 blah. The term gas operated with respect to a firearm means a firearm that harnesses or traps a portion of the high pressure gas fired from a cartridge to cycle the action. Depending on how you define gas operated, any handgun would be banned. Because it doesn't matter if they go on to say that they're like exempted. It depends on your definitions for a lot of this. Because any firearm that harnesses or traps a portion of the high pressure gas from a cartridge to cycle the action using long piston, short stroke piston, mechanically fixed. That's a terrible definition for that. System that traps and vents gas from either the barrel or the chamber to directly strike or impinge the bolt carrier or slide assembly to unlock and cycle the action. That's what every recoil handgun does, though. Like, that's just how the function works. It is the force imparting onto the slide assembly. That's how that, like, what? A hybrid system that combines elements of the system described in subparagraph C with the system described in subparagraph A or B. A blowback-operated system that directly utilizes the expansion of gas... Wait! Blowback-operated. That's by definition how fucking handguns work. Like, recoil-operated and blowback-operated are alternative names for the same thing. There's no definition of this law where handguns are going to come through clean. A recoil-operated system that utilizes the force recoil to unlock the breech bolt and then to complete the cycle. Okay, yeah. Large capacity means magazine, belts, drum, feed strips that has the overall capacity of, or that can be readily restored, altered, or converted to accept more than 10 rounds, and is not permanently affixed, and does not include any device designed to accept and capable of operating only with 22 or less caliber rifle. Oh, it says rimfire. Damn it. Damn it. Oh, I just got the dumbest idea. And I am doing this. I am 100% doing this, and none of you can stop me. I am going to develop a 22 loading that is the same strength as 5.56, but is rimfire. Like the same amount of powder, the same amount of muzzle velocity and speed, just rimfire. That would short circuit so many gun laws where they're like, it has to be weaker than a 22 rimfire. I have a 22 rimfire for you to measure. Let's do this. Oh. God, it would need to be like the length of a nail. But like, think about the number of laws that you would be able to short circuit if you developed that. Okay, let me go back to prohibitions. Except as provided in paragraph 2 or 4, it shall be unlawful for any person to import, sell, manufacture, transfer, possess, or in affecting or affecting interstate foreign commerce, a firearm device combination of parts described in A through H, knowing or having reasonable cause to believe that the firearm is included on the list of prohibited weapons, the modified non-prohibited firearm included on the list of prohibited gas-operated semi-automatic firearms that's described. So it is straight up just an attempt to ban. None of this is happening. Like, there are legal holes in this bill that you could drive a goddamn taxi through. This is not happening. This is theater. Which kind of makes you wonder. I mean, for some of the Democrats, it's theater that'll get them points. But at the same time, even if it's going to get you points, it's going to actively shit on all of your constituents. I say that like politicians would do anything but spread their legs farther. There's a somewhat happy story to continue the week with. Florida students stage walkout after reassignment of staff who allowed trans athlete to compete. Scores of students at South Florida High School walked out of class Tuesday after 5 school staffers, including the principal, were reassigned for allowing a trans athlete to participate on the girls' volleyball team in violation of state law. Students at Monarch High School in Coconut Creek began marching from the school's football field to the parking lot around noon Tuesday, chanting trans rights or human rights and holding handmade signs with message supporting trans athletes. Like, I get that there is a ban in terms of like the legal bullshit, but I have to say, it is. I disagree with the bans on every level, obviously, but it is really good to see the student body kind of recognizing this is a bullshit issue. Like, there is no universe in which it makes sense for especially at the high school level, for people to just not be respected for who they are. Everybody is developing. If somebody, especially if it's a girl on HRT, like, do not fucking care. From a biological standpoint, she's not going to have a competitive edge. That there is no universe where you have any arguments for this other than just hate. And the good news is the students at Monarch High School are based. Big up to Monarch High School. On Monday, the school district, Broward County Public Schools, reassigned Principal James Cecil, Assistant Principal Kenneth May, Athletic Director Dion Hester, Information Management Technician Jessica Norton, and temporary athletic coach Alex Burgess to non-school sites, pending the outcome of an investigation into whether a transgender student was permitted to play on Monarch High's girl volleyball team. Norton and Burgess are listed as the school's volleyball coaches on the team's Max Preps page. Broward County Public Schools did not respond to the Hill's request for comment, but a district spokesperson told ABC News on Tuesday that the district intends to, quote, continue to follow state law and will take appropriate actions based on the outcomes of the investigation. Unfortunately, they are kind of between a rock and a hard place. The school should absolutely grow a fucking spine, don't get me wrong. But at bare minimum, they'd have to be breaking the law. And I can at least understand why they're like, I wish there was more malicious compliance going on, though. No, I'm not going to give them that. No, I do not understand how anyone with a fucking backbone can look at this law and not just spit in its face. Like, the laws are the things we allow. They are the things we accept. It doesn't matter if it comes from a vote. It doesn't matter if it comes from a decree or from a judge deciding something. Law is what we accept as law. And there is a reason why protest is effective. We are committing to providing all our students with a safe and inclusive learning environment. It is hard to defend people when they are openly. I would love to sit here and be like, okay, I understand why the school's in a dealing with a complicated space, but like, you're saying you want to make sure it's safe and inclusive, and your way of doing that is making sure it's specifically not safe and not inclusive to the trans people. Like, Governor Ron DeSantis, who is campaigning to be the 2024 GOP nominee for president, signed the state's trans athlete ban in 2021. The law, known as the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, bars trans athletes from competing on school sports teams consistent with their gender identity. Students are required to submit their original birth certificates to participate in school sports, according to the law. Yeah, totally fucking normal things, and something that's not going to have horrifying consequences. Copies of everyone's birth certificate floating around offices in high school athletes. Like, yes, there's never been a problem there. This last one, I'm not sure which direction I should be taking this in, because on the one hand, it is not at all surprising given the direction of Russia's government. But on the other hand, it's both scary and it seems like an elevation. It seems like an enhancement. Like, this is pushing. This is the kind of thing you do before you start having some very, very dark days. Russia's Supreme Court bans LGBT movement as extremist. Russia's Supreme Court has issued a ban on the activities of the, quote, international LGBTQ movement in the latest crackdown on gay, lesbian, and trans rights in the country. Russia's Supreme Court has ruled that LGBTQ activists should be designated as extremists in a move that representatives of gay and trans people fear will lead to arrests and prosecutions. The court ruled on Thursday that, quote, the international LGBT public movement and its subdivisions were extremists and issued a, quote, ban on its activities on the territory of Russia. The move is the most dramatic step in the decade-long crackdown on queer rights in Russia, unleashed under President Vladimir Putin, who has put traditional family values at the cornerstone of his rule. The ruling, which the judge said would be effective immediately, did not specify whether certain individuals or organizations would be affected. The hearing took place behind closed doors and without any defense present. Russian media reported ahead of the verdict. Reporters were allowed in to hear the decision. Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters before the court decision was announced that the Kremlin was, quote, not following the case and had no comment. It's a new low point. One day, it will be over, but for now, we need to try to continue to live and save ourselves, the feminist anti-war resistance, which is critical of Russia's war in Ukraine, said on social media in response to the verdict. Other NGOs, including trans rights group Center T, said they would publish safety guidelines for members of the queer community. Its director, Jan Dvorkin, who fled Russia citing security concerns, called the legal proceeding, quote, a new low point of insanity. Amnesty International called the ruling shameful and absurd, warning in a statement that it might result in a blanket ban on queer organizations and violate freedom of association, expression, and peaceful assembly and lead to discrimination. And yeah, that's the goal here. They're not being subtle about it. The goal here is straight up trying to make people take their anger out on queer people. That is the goal. The legal prosecutions that's going to be several can of worms, especially once, depending on where things develop. But the uh, the unfortunately, the worst part is not the legal persecution. It's the personal persecution. It's the stuff that the Russian government decides that's not our issue. That's people sorting out their own issues. Unfortunately, in Russia, you're allowed to kill someone who's stealing. If you find someone stealing and you just attack them, it's a legal defense to say that you were defending Russia generally. The same applies to a lot of crime. If you find someone committing a crime in Russia and can like bring any evidence of this when you will inevitably get arrested, there's a reasonable defense that if they were committing a crime and you like killed them, that frequently reduces a sentence and sometimes can get people off. Dvorkin said he believed queer people were being used as scapegoats by Russian authorities. They're losing the war. This makes people very frustrated and dissatisfied with the government. It's very easy to take that anger out on queer people, he said. In July, lawmakers banned medical intervention and administrative procedures outlawing gender reassignment. Lawmaker Pyotr Tolstoy said at the time that the measure was about erecting a barrier to the penetration of Western anti-family ideology. Like, they are not being subtle about this. Thank you all for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I hope you stick around for the Tarkov parts. And yeah, I'll see you soon.